So just to introduce myself, I'm Paul Barnard. I've got my colleague who's also the EMEA lead for technical enablement with me, Paul Manaton. Um, I'm more commonly referred to as Barney, and Paul Manaton and I have been working with River Meadow since 2018. River Meadow started in 2005 as another migration consultancy. And by 2012, we had a decision to make. We developed a particularly powerful tool set for our own migrations. And we needed to decide, if I use the Formula One analogy, whether we were going to be another Formula One team or Honda, providing the engine to everyone else to use. Maybe that should be Mercedes this year, but who knows, right? So we made the decision to provide our tool set to other Formula One teams, if you like, and a pit crew in order for them to use our product to move their customers. And our pit crew stands ready for when they don't have the capability and they can ask us to do the move for them. So if you think of us as a toolset provider with a professional services team to fill in the gaps, that is what River Meadow provides. And we've been around for just over 20 years. So our value proposition is threefold, and it centers around the length of time. For some of you who've been around in IT as long as I have, you will come across, when you do cloud migrations, very old platforms, and those platforms are barriers to entry to other technologies. Well, we actually have the ability in our tool set, when we move it, to modernize that and address extended support costs and rebuild tool stacks so they look and smell and feel like they were built in the HPVME or Morpheus environment. So it doesn't matter where they come from, we can move them. And that's the other thing. Cloud has matured. Data centers have matured. They no longer have a single solution footprint. As much as we would like to believe that a on-premise data center is the way to go, or Google or Azure or what have you, typically the world demands a hybrid solution. And that means that the ability to move the customers from wherever they are to wherever they want to go is important. So we have a truly single pane of glass, a single experience for you as a systems integrator and as a service provider to move your customers' workloads from wherever they're coming from to wherever they need to go. And in this case, a compelling rise in the sector this year and last year has been HPVME. Without a doubt, probably the most prolific surge that I've seen in a long time. That means that you will have customers that want to migrate not just into a public cloud, but they may need to do air-gapped. Well, we do a fully on-premise model, which means there's no need to use an external connection. So if you've got highly sensitive customers, we have the ability to service those without them taking anything outside of their perimeter. And the other thing that is really key, if we think about Moore's law, computing has got more and more powerful. So it makes no sense to take what was a 32 CPU compute platform to another 32 CPU compute platform if it was provisioned 10 years ago, because the computers are now more powerful, they're faster, they've got faster batteries, they've got better disks. So we have the ability to optimize, and I'll talk a bit about that a little bit later on. But there are three really solid reasons why our toolset gives you a unique edge in the marketplace. But nothing works without preparation. And you know as well as I do, it's all very well the customer saying, I've got an aspirational goal. I'd like to be off Broadcom by June. And you say, that's great. We can do it technically. How's your business going to match up to that? And they look at you and go, oh, yes, of course. Well, we've got new nurses coming in and we can't take that system down for the clinics because of X and Y. So what we do is we have, because of our long track record, we have partnered with a number of discovery platforms, which allows us to pull natively from vCenters and ingest the information directly into our own tool set, but B, work with Cloudamize, CloudHound, Device42, and the other discovery tools where they will assess the topology of the network, work out which applications are interacting, and present back to us clustering, if you like, groups of applications that typically should be moved as a constellation. It's then something that we do with you to walk back to that customer and say, this constellation, this group of applications with these servers, we want to move them, when's the best time? And that's, you'll recognize that as wave planning, right? This is what we do. But that wave plan, that agreement with the customer is where we get velocity from, because it helps the customers scale their own BAU resources to cope with the speed of which River Meadow can move. Paul Maniton and I have a saying which says, we're faster than the speed of life. We can replicate as many servers from the source to the target as the bandwidth of the network will allow. But that's never the problem. The challenge, and you'll know this as well as I have, we've all been in this industry long enough, the challenge is having the customer capable of accepting the rate of migration and being able to test those and cut them in. That means that when we are moving from either public cloud or private cloud, and we can take from any of the platforms on the left-hand side, any of them. So it doesn't matter if you're coming from Ali Cloud, Broadcom, on-prem, bare metal, Red Hat, we can move you to HP or VME, as well as one of other 17 platforms. And we are seeing a fair amount of repatriation onto HP VME because it is a compelling proposition, especially with the Broadcom pricing now. So with these events, our platform sits squarely in the middle, will pick up from anywhere and modernize, which means it will update the legacy workloads, and I'll talk about that in a couple of slides. It will optimize, put it on the right size, and migrate the workloads without impacting the source. I'm going to say that again. Unlike other tools, there is no need to stop or quiesce the legacy server. The legacy server, the one that's in the data center, the one that's in production, the one that's in use, that can't have any outage, stays up. We clone it. That clone is then kept in sync with the source until the point of cutover. But when we clone it, we've got the advantage of all of that discovery information and our own toolset saying, based on your usage, we can take you down from 100 gigabytes to a more suitable size. Now, typically, if it's a system disk, you wouldn't take it under 25 gigabytes. For obvious reasons, you need to be able to do patching and upgrades and the like going forward. So there are sensible things that you do. An active passive node. There is no point looking at the passive nodes utilization in that type of cluster. You need to look at the active node and say, it's running at this. I need to at least have that size for when it fails over. Otherwise, your platform will crash at the moment you go to fail over. But if we take out 50, 60, 70 pounds worth of tin every server, That's a huge saving. We have estates of migrations where we are migrating tens of thousands of servers. And that gives a compelling reason for the customer to start thinking, actually, there's more to this. There's more value in this than we thought, not just avoiding the Broadcom licenses, but we can be greener. We can be on a smaller compute footprint. We can consume less power, and we effectively are getting better density from our workloads. At the same time, on the clone that we have replicated, we're able to upgrade it, and we've developed this capability with Red Hat and with Microsoft to do an in-place upgrade of the clone to take it up sequentially through the different revisions, which means you have the ability to wipe out legacy support agreements. There's no longer any need to be paying Microsoft or anyone else for extended support, because we can address that, and the customer can test on the clone, because we've moved the constellation over to the extent at which the data allows them to ensure that the upgrade works. And we have customers that use us solely for this use case. Tens of thousands of workloads, which they are consolidating the build images, consolidating the operating system, and taking out the technical debt. We're also capable of taking off deprecated versions of Linux between similar distributions. And it wouldn't be anything if we didn't do SQL, because SQL is one of the most common platforms, and we're capable of upgrading SQL. Now, I'm not going to say you can take a blasé approach to doing this. If you're taking SQL up, always run Upgrade Advisor, and the application owner will need to check with the vendor on the maximum version they can go to before there's a deprecated function. There's obviously a level of due diligence, but our tool is built for this. Zero touch. So there isn't a lift, shift, and then a whole lot of manual work. If I was to use a backup tool to move from the source to the target, I'd have to spin up a server, move everything across, hope that it booted, and then unpick the old tools and put the new tools in. That's not something you need to do with River Meadow. We look at the old virtual machine running, or whatever it was, and during the migration, during the first replication, we are able to address and stand out. And this is using EC2, but it's the same with any target. We'll take the server from its original operating system up through the available operating system. In this case, it's Windows Server. And then we will rebuild the tool stack with the right tools in it. Now that means that's now looks, smells, and feels like your day two CI/CD build image. So you're not going back and clearing up a load of technical debt to align your build images. Your new builds are happening in your new environment, look exactly the same. So you've just aligned the whole of the estate while migrating it. It's not without its challenges. And over these 20 years, our migration teams have built in to our tool set all of the lessons learned. And that means over 200 pre-flight checks. Have you chosen too small a disk? Is the right type of network connector set up, etc., etc. And before you even start, it will tell you that it's going to have a problem. Now, why is that important? Why don't you just kick it off and come back a day later? Because some of these problems will not show up until you try and cut over onto the new replicated server. And there's nothing more embarrassing than not being able to cut a customer over when they've given you an outage and you suddenly find a problem. because we pre-flight check and we find those issues early, we can make those adjustments and preserve the acceptance into service window where the final replication is done. And it's only at that final cutover that you need to quiesce the old server. And that's to take a final sync and to propagate any network changes, such as a change in the IP address. You know, there was one famous case of a cutover that I did recently where we replicated 5 servers and had to reboot 98 Linux servers in a particular order. And that clearly took a few hours, but it wasn't a constraint of our platform. It was a constraint of the way that Linux stores IP addresses. But we are changing the game for you. It's no longer a race to the bottom. You're not going to say we are the cheapest because we do it at £10 a box. If you're moving house, you'll know this as a common challenge if you're married, or maybe even if you're just moving out from your parents' place and moving into your first house. You will go and shop around and find the cheapest moving company that you can. And some come in really cheap and they say, we can do it for free and we'll just charge you for the professional services, the 3 guys I'm going to send you, if everything is 25 centimeters by 25 centimeters by 25 centimeters and weighs 5 kilos. Yeah, okay. River Meadow's different. We're the type of company that turns up and says, we look at the old furniture, we look at everything, we pack it up, we repair it, we repaint it, we take it to your new dwelling and align it feng shui-like in the new place and make sure that it's all working when we turn it on for you to walk in. That means because we have no limit in the amount of servers that we can replicate, only that presented by the network bandwidth that we're allowed to use, our speed of it replication is unmatched. I know there are other people out there that say we're the fastest. We use 98% of the available bandwidth we're given. Because we don't modify the legacy, or you don't have to turn off the live server for the replication period, only the final cutover, there's such a low risk, because if the new server isn't exactly set up on the new instances with the right firewall, the original server is still intact. You just roll back, no risk. So that means there's always a fallback position, and it's minutes, not hours, or a complete rebuild. Because you're taking out the extended support cost, you're not just about the price of the migration, the price of the adoption of HPVME or Morpheus itself. It's about, well, we're actually taking out this cost. We've made you more compliant. We've given you a better security position because we've got you on easier to patch build images because they're all aligned now. And we simplified your DevOps as part of your move to this platform. And our tool's got APIs, so you can actually plug it into something like your ticketing system, your help desk system, and someone can come along and say, I'd like to modernize this, or I'd like to move from A to B in the data center. And our APIs will actually work with that to act automatically. I've spoken about it before, I've spoken about it again, but we are built for execution. You simply deploy our migration appliance into the target of where you're going to. So into the HPE environment, into that data center. And depending on what you wish to do, it will either push back a utility onto the source workloads for things like bare metal and the likes, or an appliance onto a vCenter where it will be able to snapshot the old workloads and move them across. Now, I'm not going to talk too much because I'm going to hand over to my colleague Paul Maniton. But before I do, it is possible, and I've spoken about it before, that your customer is maybe the Ministry of Defence or something similar, or a government agency or a bank. We can deploy our portal directly into the customer environment in those scenarios. But because we are secure and compliant, there's very few scenarios where we don't pass muster when it comes to the security audit and they're happy to use the SaaS. And it's by far quicker to use the SaaS for a very short migration. Why? Because if you put everything behind the firewall, we have to also put all of the build images and operating systems into the orchestration platform that you're going to use. And if you think, oh, why don't you just put all of them? That would mean you'd have something like a terabyte deployment, which you don't want to do. But we are capable of giving you complete isolation for your customers. Now, as a value proposition, before I hand over to Paul, who will now take you through how it works and demo it with you, it means you're completely secure. You're completely compliant. We are set for sovereign cloud. We are set to put you into a data center. We are set to give you a hybrid solution. It doesn't matter that you are in a standalone data center, which a lot of your customers will be using. Our platform is one. It's one tool. We will make the customer greener and their run costs cheaper because we can pack it in with better density, largely because of Moore's laws. But if you think about when you buy an application from an application vendor, they recommend quite large hardware so their app looks great. Well, after 3 or 4 years of using the app, you know what you really need. And that's your chance to actually pare that back. It integrates. We do typically, from a standing start, we will migrate the first workloads within weeks. Our run rate is typically 100 per week, higher when the customer's organization allows for it. But because of our pre-flight checks, because we've been around the block, the confidence in execution, because BAU is not at risk, is extremely high. Mr. Manaton, I'm going to hand over to you, but as I do, are there any questions? I can't see from this side, but I'm just going to stop sharing and just check if there's any questions before I hand off. No. Okay. Over to you, Mr. Manaton. I believe you may be on mute, as I was.
I was indeed. Paul set me up with a great start here. So what we want to do is delve into a couple of pieces of the secret sauce. The first piece is our migration appliance. Our migration appliance is the piece of technology that we have that makes us so flexible. And the secret here is that we just deploy it into the places that we need to migrate to. So it's quite simple to use. And anything that anything we have a migration appliance for, we can migrate to. So let's have a look at how we deploy one. So this is our dashboard, what you can see in front of you. It's really very simple. You can see that it's actually quite intuitive as well. And this is where we control everything from. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to deploy a migration appliance for VME. And so we simply click on migration appliances, and that will take us to the page where our migration appliances live. You can see this is a greenfield site, so these are screenshots were taken from a greenfield site. We simply click on add a new migration appliance. Then what we do is we need to choose where we want to go. And so we're going to go to HP VME. Now, for the HP VME, it's an environment we as River Meadow don't have any natural access to. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to download the appliance and deploy it into the VME environment. So we need to give it a name. We will typically deploy more than one. So those of you who are looking after more than one customer, you'll probably end up deploying one appliance per environment that those customers are taking up. Then don't cost you anything. They're included in the cost of the product, so there's no additional cost for deploying extra migration appliances. So you might as well do that to make things simple and make them easy to understand when you're doing migrations. So we call it, give it a name, and then we download it. What we're downloading is we're actually downloading a QCOW. So we're going to download the migration appliance as a virtual appliance to deploy into your VME. And we need to download the customization script that will fill this appliance and configure this appliance so it's ready to connect to our platform itself. So you can see there that it's populated that. We will have to edit that later to change a few things, because one of the things that we can do, as Paul said, is if we're migrating from vSphere, we can actually deploy a worker device into vSphere. The moment we're ready, we click add and add it. Now we've not actually done anything here. You'll notice it says not deployed, not ready. This, in this case, not deployed. We have to go now to HPVME to do some of the work. So those of you who are familiar already with VME will recognize the dashboard. We're going to create a virtual image using that QCOW. So we'll add an image. We'll add it using a QCOW. We'll have to give this a name. Now, all of this stuff that I'm going through here is available on our documents website. Come and talk to us about getting access to this at a later date. So we give it a name. It's obviously easy to, and naming conventions apply here, so make it easy to recognize so that you know what it is. And then we're going to scroll down and we're going to set up the device and add in that cloud init script that we've previously configured. Then we're going to upload the QCOW file itself, and we'll save changes. So now we've got a virtual image ready of our migration appliance, and we'll start it up and get it going. Oh, sorry, no, we won't. We'll add it first. So we'll add it into our device, into an HVM instance, fill in its name and what environment it's going to go into. So this is where we decide where this machine is going to stay within our HPVME environment. We're going to change its, configure its size and configure the actual appliance itself. And then when we're finished with all that configuration, we're going to click on complete, and it will start. What it will do is it will actually boot up in your environment. It will then reach out to our platform, and you'll see here this is actually the console view of this device, and you'll see that it's managed to reach out. It's deployed in this environment, but managed to reach out to our platform environment, and it's ready to go. And then when we go to our page, you'll see that it's now deployed and we have a tick. And that is how we deploy an environment. So we'll save questions for the end. If you've got any questions, please do ask them. Now, obviously, that's great. We've got a nice appliance. It's all tuned and ready to go. We are ready now to start migrating. So what we need to migrate are some sources. So what we're going to look at first is this is a Windows machine, and this is the console from that Windows machine in our source platform. It's a I can't remember what version it was, but it's a 2012 machine, I think. 2016 machine, sorry, and it's sat ready to be migrated. What we're going to do now is we've already added it as a source, and we're going to start a migration. So if we click on this page, you'll see here's our sources. Adding a source is actually fairly straightforward. So adding a source, we can do it in multiple ways. If we're using vSphere, we can just pull it from vSphere using one of these green buttons blue buttons up here. We can refresh the vSphere sources. We can also add individual sources. We can upload sources using a CSV file. So a whole gambit of ways that we can do this to make our life as easy as possible when we're actually migrating. Most of the discovery tools that we've got will export into CSV format so that we can use that discovery to populate this sources area. You'll see here we have a Windows machine, and we've got the OS. We're going to do what we call an OS-based migration. So there's two types of migration that we've talked about. One is OS-based, so we're migrating the machine using our utility. So we deploy our utility into the machine to migrate it. And the other would be VM-based, which is when we're migrating from vSphere, if we aren't doing anything other than just a straight lift and shift. And actually, that utility is another part of our secret sauce, because it's what allows us to migrate from anywhere, including bare metal. So we can download the utility into a bare metal server and migrate the contents of that bare metal server using the utility. It doesn't even have to be a hypervisor machine. So we'll select that machine. And what we do now is we do a two-stage process that we're going to do as one stage, which is inspect and migrate. So the inspection actually goes away and looks at the machine and checks that there's nothing in there that's going to stop us migrating. Now it uses some the standard commands to produce a file that we pass out and use the contents of that detail to work out what disks are in there, all sorts of useful information that we might need, and check that it will actually migrate and there's nothing in there that's going to stop it migrating. Once we've done that, and that involves deploying, in this case, because we're using OS-based, involves deploying the utility, we'll actually migrate it as the second step. So again, part of our secret sauce is that we can have multiple migration appliances. So we can select at the point of migration which migration appliance we're going to use. So in this case, we're going to use that HP VME one that we created just now. We're going to use the workload migration, and that's it. That's all we have to do to do this first phase. What will happen now is it'll go away and do those checks. Now, it's done the checks because this is a pre-canned demo, but what we found is we found a warning. Now, for us, a warning will cause the migration to continue if we want it to, with us being aware that there's a problem. Now, in this case, that warning is actually just because there's already been a migration attempt on this machine. It can tell that. But there's also a load of other checks that it's run here to make sure that there's nothing else that would cause us a problem. And it'll either flag a warning if it's something that we can possibly get away with, or it'll flag an error if it's something that absolutely cannot be migrated with. Then we get here to the migration plan, and the migration plan basically tells us where we're going to put this machine. So it's a 2016 machine. It's going to VME. So we're going to be able to put this whatever we've configured on our VME environment. So you'll see we've auto magically populated the group the cloud that we're going to go to, the cluster, the host. We can configure the data store here down here. We can configure that on a per drive basis. In this case, we're going to do it into the same storage, but we could have put that in separate storage so that we can use different storage for different disks. Then we're going to look at the layout, and we're going to assign a resource pool. So this is the plan that we're using for VME in this case. And then we can also configure the network settings. So we can configure static, or we can use DHCP. At this stage, we can also add a second NIC if we wish to, because it's obviously this could be a physical machine. It could be coming from a different network. We may need to change its networking environment. Now, one of the bits we really love at River Meadow here is the ability to do this OS modernization as part of the migration process. So what will happen is here we can check which OS we want to modernize to. So we're on 2016, so we can upgrade to anything up to 2025. And you'll see that we can just select it and it will upgrade. What will actually happen is that it'll create, it'll do the initial migration and land the initial migration, and then it'll proceed to upgrade that machine in place. And as Paul said, without touching the original source machine. We never touch the original source machine. You've always got that there to roll back to. So you can use this to test your upgrade and make sure that you're happy with it before you actually go live with it. So we're going to go to Windows 2022. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click on continue. Now, what it's actually done in the background here is it's gone off and it's run another pre-flight check with the bits that we've changed. So it's going to check that whatever we've done as part of the migration plan are not going to adversely affect the migration itself. So it's going to do all those checks, and you can see they came back as fine. And so we can now say start migration. And this is our migration screen. So you'll see this when you do migrations, you'll spend a lot of time looking at this because this is what we're looking at to check everything's proceeding nicely. You can see it has 4 distinct phases. The first one is the instantiate target. That's where we build that target virtual machine ready to take our source machine. The data sync, where we copy over all the existing data. We then prepare the target, which is where we do that golden image stuff that Paul was talking about, where we take all the drivers and the anything that's changed from the original source into the new source, into the target. And then finally, when we've done all that, we'll do an OS modernization because we selected that, and it will modernize the OS for us. And when that's finished, we'll have a new shiny machine in a new version of the operating system with all the correct drivers installed, ready to test. And we're looking at the same machine here, and you can see that it's gone up to Windows 2022. So we've upgraded it successfully. And as I said before, we can go all the way to 2025 if that's what you need to do. And that's our canned demos. If you've got any questions, please, now's the time to ask them. So Paul, back to you.
Okay, to summarize where we left off. We have OS, block, and snapshot replication from any source into HPVME or a hybrid solution. No impact to the legacy, completely automated, able to keep it in sync for weeks while testing happens, the data is replicated across. It's a warm cutover, so it's just really a propagation of network for the final cutover. You can schedule the migrations if the customer wants to only replicate out of hours. We can compress and optimize the footprint, and we can have some assurances. Now, we've been around for years. We have the obligatory NASCAR slide, as I call it. These are customers that already trust and use us at scale. Some of these customers are over 100,000 workloads deep with us in our technology. Paul and I are part of an EMEA focused team, okay? We cover all platforms, all expertise. So if you want to talk to us about any hybrids, we're here. We are fast becoming major advocates of HPVME and the value that it brings. It is an astoundingly good platform. It's a great way to get the customers moving into their own data centers and doing data refreshes to leverage what they've got. If you want to do a technical Q&A, deep dive with your technical teams, my details are up on the screen. Reach out to me. We will do a Q&A session. We will even set you up a lab, and we will train you on how to use the tool for yourself. Now, we then work with you to go and do a jump start for any significant prospect that you've got to prove it, because people tend to say to us, it's too good to be true. I hear that. I've come from 30 years of delivery where I've had salesmen overpromise and sell snake oil to customers. That's not what I do. 100% everything I've told you here is true, and we will back it up 100%. And we are really proud to be working with HPE as a partner with what they do. That concludes my presentation. I'm going to hand back now. I am more than happy to take questions either now or by email. Feel free to book in time with me.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks for the presentation and the details shared. May I ask something, just maybe for the benefit of everyone, just to go, explain how the licensing works once more, because we had people coming in and off. Maybe because that's a question that we receive quite frequently. If you can go through that again once more, just to clarify how the licensing works, that would be great.
So the licensing is very simple. It's per workload, okay? So you will buy an entitlement, let's pretend 100 workloads, and you can use those 100 workloads over 3 customers, 1 customer. It makes no difference to us. We set you up with the portal. We give you a advantageous price, and the pricing is held by HP themselves, so you can go through those or come direct depending on how your HPE account manager is working with you. You can do standalone self-service, or you can engage us for a fixed cost per workload, and that fixed cost in dollars for us starts under $400 per workload, which gives you complete assurance that we will do everything for you from discovery through to acceptance into service as part of your team. You will always own the relationship with your customer. You will always have control of the project. We simply act as your pit crew, part of your professional services in that model, and perform the work for you. And we would typically always be there on your first self-service, your first own managed project, to help you tune that engine to the customer's environment. We have a saying, it's always the network. And that means that our tool set is really mature. The problems that you will run into typically will be firewall connectivity or something of that, or potentially things like the antivirus. We've been around, we've got the Gray's knees. So if you're taking a self-service workload based, you get a full support package from our team and you have access to Paul Manaton. We have one of your partners that we've been working with last weekend who are migrating their own data center. They did, it was 50 last Saturday with Paul. And Paul helped that migration along, where they bumped their knees on a couple of things. But it's per workload. It's at the point of consumption. So if you attempt something and it fails, you don't get charged for that. Okay. And there can be reasons where things fail. If people are modernizing beyond the capability of the application stack on top of it, and that fails, we would grant you another license to try again on a lower version, that type of thing. So it's a per workload. It's banded discount, so the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. What is the price? And we stand ready to, especially this month, to service you with any requests that you have.
Thank you. Let me ask whether there are any other questions to the River Meadow team from the audience. You can always reach out to us or to them directly after the call as well. And Paul, is it okay that we share this recording?
It is, and we'll also send you links to the video what step through demo, so you can actually use it for yourself. Yeah. And our documentation portal. But okay. Please connect with me. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you win business.
Okay. Thank you so much. I understand there are no further questions. It was a great presentation. Thanks.
Sorry,
Brian. Go ahead, Tilker.
Hi, folks. Actually, I was wondering about, is there any mechanism which is ECC means error checking, correcting, or the compatible report? Is there any ECC report before migration virtual machine from A to B? If we can get the report before migration, if we migrate the virtual machine will run or compatible, or is there any about it?
So can you export outside of the portals doing its pre-flight tests? Is that the question? So if you were to run those pre-flight tests over 50 servers, or are you talking about the discovery tool where it's looking at the disposition of the current estate?
For example, most of cases, our customer wants a kind of report. Of course, we can migrate our virtual machine from A to B. It means from anywhere to VME, where we can migrate. But my customer wants to have a simple report before migration their virtual machine. Is it compatible, or our virtual machine will run correctly? Are my virtual machine will run correctly, etc.?
I believe that there is an API that will bring out the results of the pre-flight tests. I will check what that is, but you can query our platform to get the results of the pre-flight test. So you'd put all of those workloads in a migration group or several migration groups, and then you'd run your pre-flight checks, but not migrate. And then you'd pull the data from that out, and you could provide it to your customer and say, we've looked at your 50 that are going in the first wave, and all of them have passed their pre-flight checks, and they should be okay to go.
We've actually got a customer we're talking to at the moment where they're doing going to do exactly that using our APIs and our PowerShell scripting module, so that they can pass out the results of the pre-flight checks.
Okay. Okay, got it.
It's not a canned screen where you can say, here it is, but there is the ability to
although if you we do have a screen where you can see that, but it's per workload, so you may want to be able to pour more than one workload, which would require a little bit of programming.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the answer is yes. Just
Yeah.
we have to work with you on PowerShell.
Yeah. Partially yes. Yes, partially yes.
All right. Thank you, Turker. Thanks, Paul and the team. Any other questions to the River Meadow team?
Burak, I would like to ask one
Sure.
question to team. Is there any dependencies for the source type, for example, NSX or any other types of technologies, software-defined storage, software-defined network, etc.?
No, not really. If we've got two methods, two ways to migrate things. If one doesn't work within vSphere anyway, with them, what you mentioned NSX, so I'm assuming we're talking about vSphere. We've got VM type, which means we can take the VM and we're kind of OS agnostic. We don't care what's inside the machine so much. Or we've got OS based, which is using the utility, which means that we literally just go in and pull what's inside the OS. So if it's sat on vSAN, we can pull it off and it'll just go on to whatever storage you're using on VME.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sohalia.